Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast presented by our friends over at Briar Greaves Insurance. Protecting your assets starts with a company that you can count on. So whether it's auto, homeowners, flood, botus, or business insurance, Briar Greaves Insurance are the best people in the business to work with. So visit briargreavesinsurance.com or give them a call at 813-876-4166. That's 813-876-4166. It is a Monday edition of the show. Hope everybody had a fantastic weekend. We had a great show on Friday, so shout out to everybody that came out for our happy hour edition of Bucs rookie minicamp. So we recapped day one on Friday. Bucs were back out at practice on Saturday. Pewter Report was there, so we're going to recap day two of Bucs rookie minicamp practice. Some standouts, takeaways, all of that type of stuff. I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me is the face that runs the place at pewterreport.com, SR, Scott Reynolds. Scott, I see you're rocking Kansas State purple, and maybe it has a little bit of something to do with really the man of the weekend, or at least one of them, Jacob Parrish. But how are we doing?
Doing great. And not as good as Jacob Parrish, though. I mean, he had a fantastic weekend. I just got through doing a Pewter Pulse video on him a couple hours ago, and it's already almost at 2,000 views. So thank you all very much for consuming that. And I'll just drop the link in the chat right now in case you haven't had a chance to look at it. Wait until the end of the show, and then feel free to click on it. I would say the most interesting thing is out of all of the draft picks, I think maybe Jacob Parrish was maybe the least kind of heralded and talked about,
I think that's totally fair.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Just because Benjamin Morrison was the first corner taken and he was the second corner taken. And, even with Elijah Roberts, we had him on the Pewter Report podcast, a Miami native, played with the Hurricanes and had a great season there. David Walker's been talked about a lot. He's the cover guy today on our graphic. We'll talk about him in just a moment. Emeka Egbuka certainly is the number one pick. And then Tez Johnson has gotten a ton of pub as well. Just as much for his press conferences as his ability on the football field. It was interesting that Jacob Parrish just kind of burst on the scene, and it kind of made me think of like Servassier Dennis when he came to the Buccaneers, had a pick six in his first rookie minicamp. Then like a week later, Matt, you and I are at the OTAs. He's got another pick six. Then he had like two more in training camp and just kind of became that kind of buzzworthy, playmaker. And unfortunately, injuries have derailed the start of his Buccaneer career. But I think the best is yet to come for him with the shoulder surgery now fixing that problem that began in college. And Jacob Parrish, Todd Bowles wanted ball hawks. So that certainly was, I'm not going to say a pleasant surprise, but maybe it was a little bit of a pleasant surprise because I wasn't expecting him to have that type of debut in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I think you make a great point overall because the first round pick with Emeka Egbuka was such a surprise. That's like noteworthy. And then even the day or the round 4 and round 5 guys like David Walker, the fact that he got drafted, there was a whole big point and discussion of like, oh my God, the Bucs didn't go with an edge rusher. What are they going to do with edge rusher? And then they finally went with one. Even with Jacob Parrish, good player up until Bucs rookie minicamp. Now he's a great player. But even with Jacob Parrish, I was just like, all right, like I'm okay with it. I can live with it. But I wasn't, doing the Macarena the way I was for, Benjamin Morrison and things of that nature. So it's one of those things. It happens from time to time when you're watching tape of like one player and then someone else completely different ends up like being the star of the show. Yeah. And we kind of saw that live and in person with Jacob Parrish having an interception both days. And then for Todd Bowles to be like, he was the fastest guy out there. It wasn't a wide receiver. It's not just us seeing it. It's the coaches seeing it as well. So if the Bucs can truly get this ball hawking nature off the ground, I think this defense can do a lot of great stuff this season. And they might have to rely on rookies once again, but off to a really good start. And there are those comparisons a little bit to Servassier Dennis of just making an impact right away, one way or another. Now, if he picks off Baker Mayfield in a couple of weeks, then we'll really be talking about Jacob Parrish. But certainly a good sign from Bucs rookie minicamp from what we saw with these guys.
For sure. And you mentioned rookies making an instant impact. Look no further than the Super Bowl champions, right? Quinyon Mitchell the cornerback. I think it was the first round pick by the Eagles, and then Cooper DeJean, another top pick for Philadelphia. Both of those guys make impact plays for the Eagles down the stretch. Cooper DeJean had the interception in the Super Bowl. So, I mean, we saw some young players in the secondary in 2020, guys like Jamel Dean, who was a draft pick in 2019, Sean Murphy-Bunting, a draft pick in 2019, Carlton Davis, who was in his third season in Tampa Bay as a draft pick in 2018, Antoine Winfield Jr. as a draft pick that season in 2020.
Yeah.
Jordan Whitehead, who was a fourth-round draft pick, had only played a couple of years in Tampa Bay. So that was a relatively young gravedigger secondary that made huge impact plays leading up to and during the Super Bowl for that team. So Todd Bowles is not afraid to play rookies. He said that, right or wrong, the rookie cornerback position, or I should say the cornerback position, is the easiest in his defense to come in and learn. And so we'll see what happens. And I thought Josh Capo did a really good job in his story today talking about Benjamin Morrison and Jacob Parrish possibly kind of being flex guys for the Buccaneers, right? And we talked about it on Friday, Matt. Having Benjamin Morrison out there was a great sign for the Buccaneers. And, he certainly looked good during those two practices. Didn't work out in team drills, but did all the individual drills. And it's just a matter of him getting into football shape, really, at this point, after recovering from his hip surgery and then not having the opportunity to work out at the combine or his pro day, but did that individual kind of pro day where he showed some movement skills a couple days before the draft. But both of these guys have the ability to play inside and out. And I just wonder, we heard from Zion McCollum when he was on the Pewter Report podcast about doing different things to kind of disguise what the Bucs are going to do from a coverage standpoint. He says, we're going to be a lot closer to line of scrimmage. Yeah. That may be press man. That may be like a press bail, right? Where you're up on the line of scrimmage, but you don't really press, you kind of bail. And you might be in zone, you might be in man, but not doing things that before the snap are going to telegraph to the quarterback what type of coverage you're playing. And it might be a situation where both of these guys, Parrish and Morrison, because of their size and ability, have the ability to be inside or out, right? You might see Jacob Parrish outside at cornerback in one game, and then he might be the nickel the next. And so it's going to be really interesting. And I think it just adds another potential layer for disguise for Todd Bowles. We remember how effective it was in the playoff game against the Eagles when all of a sudden Carlton Davis and Jamel Dean are out there. And so was Zion McCollum, sometimes as a nickel, sometimes as a safety in that game. And, Jalen Hurts did not have a good game at all. No. And maybe that was part of the reason why.
Yeah, I love the idea of, maybe not like subbing guys in and out on like every other drive, whatever the case. Like, okay, this rep is Jamel Dean's drive. Yeah. The next rep, it's Benjamin Morris. But being able to throw these guys in certain situations, maybe even specific packages, we know how Todd Bowles can dial up crazy, chaotic things. But yeah, we haven't really seen the disguises, if you will, from the secondary coverage specifically. Yeah. But when he does pull it out, it does tend to work pretty good. So maybe now he finally feels like he has the personnel where he can go out and do it a little bit more. And thanks to Zion for, telling us all of that on the podcast the other day. But, kind of reminds me going back to the NFL annual meetings where Todd was like, no, we don't have good depth. Like, we need a lot more. We need all of this help. And Todd Bowles continued to essentially voice in his own way, his own frustration of maybe not having the type of quality guys that he needed. And sure, injuries played a factor into, but not having the right guys to call the type of coverages that he wants. But now with Jacob Parrish and hopefully Benjamin Morrison, taking it day by day, now he finally feels like he has really the top type of secondary he's wanted since the 2020-2021 season, where you had some of the best defenses that Todd Bowles has called in any of his career. So I think he probably feels that he has that once again with Parrish, with Morrison, Zion obviously going into another year. You move Tyke to safety. There could be a lot of there's already going to be big changes, but the changes could be significant for several years for this Buccaneers team. I don't even
agree.
think it's just a this season type of thing, because you could flex out Morrison and Parrish, but they're the future at corner on this team. They are second and third rounders, and let's not get too far ahead. Like, Parrish has looked really good, but again, do it against like Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, stuff like that. But presumably, you have a lot of talent for the future of this team if they do hit. And Todd Bowles is the best at working with young corners.
Yeah, and listen, Benjamin Morrison, if not for the hip injury, would have been a first-round pick. So it's almost like Tampa Bay got 2 first-round picks in Morrison and Emeka Egbuka. The other thing I'll say to your point, Matt, is go back and listen to that Zion McCollum podcast if you haven't. It's kind of crazy. He's like a star in the making. And for whatever reason, Elijah Roberts had more views on the podcast. And I know that there's a sense of newness with the rookie, and Elijah, fantastic young man, and I think he's got a promising future too along that defensive line. But Zion McCollum broke a lot of news. There's a lot of very interesting nuggets and tidbits in there. And I thought Matt and I did a very good job of asking questions that prompted those answers. But Zion is very forthcoming. And really kind of, without giving away state secrets, just kind of like, hey, this is new. This is new. We're doing this new. This is, so a lot of new stuff there. So if you're looking for another podcast to watch after this one, go check out Zion McCollum's interview from last week, because it was dynamite. I'm not saying that, Diaby's wasn't and Mike Beals wasn't, whatever, but Zion breaks some news. And I think that's definitely worth checking out for sure.
Yeah, please check it out whenever you have the time. It's certainly an episode that we obviously want you to check it out right away, but it's pretty much evergreen up until the start of the regular season. It addresses a lot of different things. It looks at last year, it looks at this upcoming season, a lot of different things going on with the defense specifically. So highly recommend it. Yeah, there's a reason why he won the Mark Cook Good Guy award.
That's right. He likes to talk to the media, and he's very forthcoming and shoots it to you straight. So speaking of breaking news, there had been a couple signings. We covered both of these signings on Pewter Report yesterday and today. The Buccaneers officially announced the signing of linebacker Nick Jackson. Very interesting linebacker, 55 career tackles, including 33 for loss, 20 passes defense, 17 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, and an interception in 73 games. That's right. He played 6 years, 4 at Virginia and 2 at Iowa. There's now 3 Iowa Hawkeyes on this team, including Tristan Wirfs and Anthony Nelson. So Nelly and Tristan got to be pretty excited to have another Hawkeye in the building. And, he's an interesting player. 6 foot, 235. He's got enough size, 4.65 speed. He's not maybe as fleet of foot as some linebackers, but kind of in the realm of a Servassier Dennis, and where Levante David is at this stage of his career. So we'll see. He's got a chance. The other player that they signed was a player that you wrote about, Matt, Devon J. Thomas, 6'1", 305-pound nose tackle out of Penn State, and had 93 tackles, 13.5 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. So he adds some more depth to the defensive line room that has already seen some massive depth added with Desmond Watson. So both of those players were new. There's Watson right there. And the Buccaneers released Deion Jennings, not Deion Jones, but Deion Jennings, who was a newcomer this offseason. So he had a very short stay in Tampa. So Deion Jennings has waived the linebacker to make room for Nick Jackson. And then tight end Anthony Lanfear was also waived. So the Buccaneers apparently staying put with their tight ends there. But Matt, we had a chance to, on Saturday, you do some interviews. We talked to Jacob Parrish. We talked with Elijah Roberts, who friend of the program on the Pewter Report podcast. But we had a chance to meet Desmond Watson and Shiloh Sanders. And I'm telling you right now, if you weren't rooting for Desmond Watson, this guy's story is just absolutely endearing. I mean, first of all, he's like a big lovable teddy bear.
Yeah,
he just is. Like, it's hard not to root for the guy. We're supposed to be objective and, fair and balanced and all this as reporters, but he always has a smile on his face. He's like I'm so blessed. I played football in Plant City where I grew up, went to Florida, and then now with the Buccaneers. My whole career, football wise, has been in the state of Florida. He's making progress with his weight. Didn't want to talk too much about it. He says he wants to be known as a football player. He wants to be known for pounding the opponents, not for his pounds, right?
Yeah.
And I love that about him. And just really a charming guy that you just have a sense is like a really good human being, and probably destined for the practice squad if he ends up making it. He's got a lot of work to do, but certainly a player that, as you mentioned, Matt, I think on Friday, maybe if he makes the practice squad, he gets the elevation for that Eagles game whenever that is.
Yeah, he seems like a really wholesome guy. It's awesome. The like you mentioned, the story, just the fact that you don't see that a lot, where someone like, you'll see like a player from the University of Pittsburgh get drafted by the Steelers and stuff like that. But for someone to play high school locally and then right down the road at college and then have an opportunity with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you don't see that all the time. And he's taken it seriously. Already lost some weight, but still a very long way to go. And it just seemed like a fun-loving guy, really, in his press conference. I said it the other day. It's a spectacle. It's an absolute spectacle seeing him play. I don't know if he's going to have the speed to, stay with it. But I mean, some of the undrafted free agents are as big of a story as the like this year's draft picks. And Des Watson is no pun intended, he's a huge part of it, based on what's going on. And obviously the Bucs have the record with the lightest player in the NFL and the heaviest player in the NFL. But man, there's a lot of depth right now at defensive tackle. I spoke about it a little bit, but I'm excited to see him during the preseason, because if he can make a play or two, I know it's not going to be a full stadium in the preseason, but Raymond James Stadium could be loud if he ends up making a play.
No, I agree. The interesting thing about Des Watson is when we watched him go against the offensive lineman, right? And it's like the guard he was going up against, and listen, it's kind of patty cake right now. There's not a lot of contact. Nobody's in pads during the rookie minicamp, the OTAs, the mandatory minicamp, all the offseason. It's basically just come out of your stance and just kind of like engage, just kind of like play patty cake with the guy in front of you.
Right.
But it's like to see kind of like the guards just even struggle to kind of like even try to get any movement. And it's kind of like a little bit of choreography, right? It's like, if you're running a zone blocking scheme, it's like, you're a defensive lineman, you're supposed to flow down the line and keep your gap, right? If you're an offensive lineman, you're supposed to try to, kind of push that guy a little bit and kind of create some seams for the running back. And it just, whichever guard was tasked with engaging Desmond Watson, like he didn't move. Like he's one of those guys, like a juggernaut. He literally didn't move. So that was pretty impressive to see. And again, it's all about movement, as you said, Matt. It's can he get in shape to where he's agile enough? He does have the short area quickness, right? But it's the sustainability, it's the endurance, those types of things. Can he be more than a 1 or 2 play player? Can he stay on the field for an entire drive or, a 4-rep series? That's going to be the big challenge for him. And pad level is also going to be a big challenge. He's 6'6", right? So it'd be a little bit different if he was 400 pounds and maybe 6'3", where he's more built like a fire hydrant. But he's not. He's a tall guy. I mean, Vita Vea is 6'4". This guy's 2 inches taller than Vita Vea and has longer arms. So we'll see how that really plays out. I know we have a couple super chats to get to, but folks, there's a little thing that we do on Mondays. We do it just for you, and we've been doing it for a long time now. And if you're a longtime Pewter Report podcast fan, you know what we're going to be talking about here at 420. And if you don't, what Matt Matera is going to tell you.
That's right, because it's 420 on a Monday. It's time for Roll Call. So we love interacting with our fans, the Pewter people, Bucs fans, as much as we possibly can. And we have awesome fans all over. We love our fans everywhere, but they're not just in Tampa. They're not just in the state of Florida. They are all over the world, both in the United States and internationally as well. So every roll call that we do on Monday shows when we're in our home offices. We one of us will go on a conversation about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And in the meantime, if you guys want to put in the comments where you were watching from, what town, we will put it up on the screen like David watching from Naples, Florida, and we'll give a couple of special shout outs after as well. So everyone will be put up on the comments, and then we'll give some shout outs too. So
Matt, I'll do the honors today.
Yeah.
I'd like to talk about Todd Bowles and what the offseason he's had. Quite the offseason. Been critical about Todd Bowles about some things for sure. Use of personnel, timeout usage, game management. Those things are very valid. And I've picked on George Edwards before, the outside linebackers coach from last year and the year before, who saw the production really drop in that unit. And I've done a Pewter Pulse video. We've talked about it on the Pewter Report podcast. I've written columns about it. I love everything Todd Bowles has done this offseason, from getting Zach Beastline to be in charge of game management, from that gentleman right there, Larry Foote, back to outside linebackers coach, bringing back Mike Caldwell to coach inside linebackers, and getting George Edwards to kind of be that pass game coordinator. As McCollum told us on the Pewter Report podcast, the Bucs secondary is now meeting together as a group. And I think that pays huge dividends, because go back to the first Super Bowl in 2002, Mike Tomlin, who was the secondary coach, the defensive backs coach for Tampa Bay. That means that Tomlin was coaching safeties and cornerbacks and nickels all together. And the Buccaneers, over the last couple of years under Bowles, they've kind of had one meeting for cornerbacks with Kevin Ross, another meeting with safeties with Nick Rapone, and then another meeting with Rashad Johnson with nickels. And I think George Edwards bringing the entire unit together to watch film together, to communicate better together, is going to make a big difference. But it's not just even that. It's the fact that when Todd Bowles says he wants ball hawks, Jason Light listened and got him some ball hawks. But not just any ball hawks. Some of the guys that we were focused on, like 6'2" cornerback Savon Revel Jr. out of East Carolina, the team passed on, not just in the first round, but the second round. And instead, they got some cornerbacks that maybe weren't typical Todd Bowles corners. Guys like Benjamin Morrison, who's 6 foot, about 195, 200 pounds. And the guy we've been talking about today, Jacob Parrish, who's 5'10", 191 pounds. And I have to give Todd Bowles and Jason Light some credit. There was a time, and this preceded Todd Bowles' arrival in Tampa Bay in 2019 as the defensive coordinator on the Bruce Arians staff. But Vernon Hargreaves was a first-round draft pick by Jason Light, and the worst draft that Jason Light's ever had in 2016. First-round pick, Vernon Hargreaves out of Florida. 5'10", about 205 pounds. Vernon Hargreaves was short, and he got exposed, and he couldn't really jump, and he got big-boyed by a lot of bigger wide receivers. Remember Julio Jones really taking him to task when the Bucs played the Falcons several occasions. And that kind of traumatized the Bucs front office, and they said, no more short corners. We're not drafting any corners under 6 feet tall. And pretty much that's been the case when you look at all the corners drafted since then. You had 6'1" Jamel Dean, 6 foot Sean Murphy Bunting, 6'2" Zion McCollum, 6'1" Carlton Davis. Those are some corners, just to name a few. MJ Stewart was a 6-foot corner. They even drafted a cornerback out of BYU, Chris Wilcox, who was 6'1", didn't end up making it. I think he was a 6th or 7th round pick. But Jacob Parrish becomes the first cornerback under 6 foot to be drafted. Even Josh Hayes, his former Kansas State teammate, who Parrish might end up replacing on the roster, is 6 feet tall. So I just want to give some props to Todd Bowles and Jason Light for making some changes when necessary, right? Not just with scheme and coaching changes and all of this, but even when it comes to acquiring players, because there are some really good cornerbacks in this league under 6 feet tall. Matt, you're familiar with one of them, DJ Reed, who played for a couple of years with the Jets.
Yeah.
He's now with the Lions, started off with the 49ers and went to the Seahawks. He's been a really good corner. He's 5'9", 188 pounds. Also went to Kansas State. So I know DJ Reed really well. But I think it really shows a lot of growth from this coaching staff and the personnel staff to sit there and say, hey, let's look at some of these players and take the guardrails off a little bit. And it kind of reminds me of Mark Dominic when he took over as the Bucs general manager. And Dominic had some good drafts. Drafted Gerald McCoy, drafted Levante David, drafted Doug Martin, who was a 2-time Pro Bowl running back until substance abuse derailed his career. But the one thing Dominic did was he put up in the war room jerseys of some of the greatest Buccaneers. Rondé Barber, Mike Allstott, Derek Brooks, Warren Sapp. None of those guys really wowed you from a physical standpoint. Nobody had the body of Adonis. Nobody really wowed you with their pro day testing, et cetera. But yet those were some of the greatest Buccaneers in team history up until that point in time. And I think that's a great reminder to us all that sometimes it's not really how big you are or fast you are, or how high you jump. It's how well you play the game of football. And we'll see. But Jacob Parrish is a little undersized, but the dude showed over the weekend he can play some football. We'll see how his career ends up as it's just getting started.
Yeah, really well said. I think a lot of the times it's all about, Bruce Arians would say this a lot. It's about, what's in between the ears than necessarily, the whatever physical specimen these players could be. And Bowles is always trying to, at least recently, especially this offseason, has tried to better himself, whether it's looking at the types of players or, game management, all the stuff that was just previously mentioned. So, yeah, spot on. I mean, and I think it's led to a lot more confident Todd Bowles as well, which hopefully that will pay dividends during the season too.
For sure.
We had a great turnout once again at roll call today. So shout out to everybody that participated. We'll give a couple of quick shout outs. Dan in Florida, Dan in Arizona today. So watching from different spot in the country. James Hamilton from Louisville, Kentucky. Alan Decker says normally Bradenton, but listening live from Geneva, Switzerland this week.
Wow.
So going
I've
a little
actually been there.
Oh,
Very
yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Mark Fisher, Fayetteville, North Carolina. We had a lot of North Carolinians on
very cool
today's show. Pat
Great
William,
state.
Naples, Florida. John Dale Morris, Lexington, Nebraska. Let's go Bucs.
Yep.
Jesse Presto from Oklahoma. Supply and Demand, St. Pete. Matthew H., who I believe we met on the Bucs cruise, says Captain Matt, Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. Devin Capri, Middletown, Delaware, home of our very own Chris Godwin.
There we go.
And last, but certainly not least, AKS 12, Oahu, Hawaii. So we got Hawaii in the building on today's show. So appreciate everybody's support. And also we appreciate all of those that are Pewter Report YouTube channel members. So we'll start off thanking our platinum members, Scott Federico, Rachel Gordon, Noah Parr, Scotty J, Dave Anderson, Hezo813, Ash Fishpool, Joel Elrican, Sam, John Dale Morris, Zach Brannigan, RP89, Eric McMillan, Connor Four Reels, Zach Jarvis, Kevin Thomas, and Mario Thomas. Thank you all so much for being Pewter Platinum members. We
appreciate that.
Are super grateful.
Yeah. We've got a great week of shows lined up for you. Tomorrow, Matt and I are going to be down at One Buccaneer Place, where the defensive coaches are going to be speaking, and we're going to have live reaction. That's Larry Foote right there, outside linebackers coach. And this should be pretty fascinating. We'll talk to George Edwards and his new role. Talk to Mike Caldwell coming back to the Buccaneers. Mm-hmm. Kevin Ross, Nick Rapone. Maybe we'll get Rashad Johnson, the nickel corners coach, as well. And Charlie Strong, the new defensive line coach, as well. So tomorrow will be action-packed. We'll have a lot of great clips to share with you and some insight that we learned from the press conferences. These are usually like over an hour in length because so many coaches. Yeah. And then just a programming note, next Tuesday, we already know this because the Bucs have it on their schedule. Next Tuesday, we will have the Bucs offensive coaches speak. That's Josh Grizzard, new offensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So that'll be next Tuesday. But we're not done with this week yet. Matter of fact, we've got a show on Wednesday night, folks. That's right, the Bucs 2025 schedule release show. We will be going live at 8 o'clock, right when the Bucs 2025 schedule is announced. Yes, the Buccaneers will be playing and hopefully beating the Eagles once again at Raymond James Stadium. That will be the only playoff team from 2024 that the Bucs will be playing in Tampa. So is this the year the Buccaneers maybe finally, hopefully, go undefeated at home? They've never done that, Matt. In 50 years in their franchise history, they've never gone undefeated. They've had a couple of really good years where they've only lost one home game, but those have been few and far between. We'll see if they can go undefeated at home this year. If that's the case, look out for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They only have 8 home games this year, so not 9 like they did last year. So that will be a great show to watch, the Bucs 2025 schedule release show. And then we have this confirmed. Just mark your calendar. It's not for a couple weeks, but on Wednesday, May 28th, that's right, the day after our OTA coverage show, we're going to have Bucs general manager Jason Light on the show for the full hour. So make sure you stay tuned to that. We'll get Jason's insights about how the team's looking in OTAs, the veterans, the rookies, everybody. So mark your calendar for Wednesday, May 28th at 4 o'clock p.m. right here on Pewter Report TV, our YouTube channel.
Yeah, very excited to have Jason on the show. Always great when we have any type of Bucs guest, but of course, everyone loves Jason. So yeah, we'll get his thoughts for sure.
Matt, I was going to say, we'll get to some super chats real quick. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about how impressive David Walker was. Now, I did a Pewter Pulse video on Jacob Parrish. Those 2 pick sixes, those were the plays of the rookie minicamp for sure. But just from our own observations of Pewter Report out there watching both practices and some feedback we got from inside the building, the star of the show, and this is something that Todd Bowles said when asked who was the best player out there on Friday, it was David Walker. And that proved to be the case again on Saturday. Folks, he has not gone 1 rep against Tristan Wirfs or Luke Gedeke yet. Okay. I don't want to get too ahead of things, but you're not going to find a Buccaneer rookie that's getting more buzz behind the scenes than this guy right here. And there's David Walker with Larry Foote. And man, this guy has some absolute twitch and explosive get off. And just think of like Shaq Barrett, but maybe a little bendier. Yeah, that's a word, bendier. I just made it up. And with heavier hands and about 10 more pounds behind him. 6 foot, 263 pounds. I think Shaq was 6'1", about 252. So very similar body type. This guy is explosive. And I'm really excited to see what this guy can do, because David Walker, he might be the next 4th round steal for the Buccaneers. I know they just had one last year in Bucky Irving in the 4th round. This guy, I can't wait to see him go up against the likes of Wirfs and Luke Gedeke, because he might give them some fits. He's going to be special. And I know this team has high expectations for Chris Braswell. And Matt, if that comes to fruition, if Braswell takes the big jump that Mike Beal talked about and the Jason Light and Todd Bowles have talked about, and then you have this guy right here in David Walker on that second hockey shift line behind Yaya Diaby and Hassan Reddick, I mean, there will be no drop-off in pass rush ability if that's the case. And we have a long way to go. There's a lot of work to be done in OTAs, training camp, preseason, etc. But if those 2 guys, Braswell can make the jump in year 2, and Walker can be, if he can live up to the early hype, we know what Larry Foote's going to do with Yaya Diaby. And we got a really good feeling of how Hassan Reddick's going to bounce back. And if that's the case, where the Buccaneers at any time on the field can have 2 outstanding pass rushers on the edge, look out.
I've said all along that Braswell is a big component of this season, because if he takes the next step, then you're in a completely different but better scenario with this outside linebacker room. However, a lot of this was before David Walker came onto the scene and was even drafted. David Walker, having a Bucky Irving type of season in terms of just blowing up right away as a 4th round pick, that would calm a lot of the nerves of what's people may be worried about with Chris Braswell specifically. Yeah. If both of them are able to work, that would be something absolutely spectacular. And that would be like what the Eagles kind of had. With them, it was like all of their trenches, but just being able to go after the quarterback, play after play after play with no drop off at all whatsoever. The thing I will say about Walker, and again, it's so early. I mean, great compliments from the coaches and people inside the building.
Yep.
He's a determined dude. I mean, let's remember, this is like the biggest time that he's been away from like his comfort zone, really.
Yeah.
Like he went from one part of Arkansas to the other part of Arkansas. Now he's in Tampa. But I keep going back to what he said when we spoke to him, when he was like, I want to go in the Hall of Fame of Central Arkansas. I wanted to break all these records instead of just transferring to another school and just, I'm there for a year, but what's kind of like my legacy after that? What's my like how will I be remembered at that school? Is essentially what he was saying without saying. And for him to show and prove that determination, I could just go. It's a little cocky for sure, but I could just go to any school and get 8 or 9 sacks.
That's the truth.
If that exudes onto an NFL football field, if he's anything like Shaq Barrett, even what Shaq was for the Bucs, I mean, he was incredible. If he's anything like Shaq Barrett right away, man, I mean, the defense could do a complete 180 as an entire unit. I mean, we spent the first half of the show talking about the young guns on the secondary, but if they find an outside linebacker too, this could be a team that could quickly become a Super Bowl contender. Now, a lot of pieces have to fall into the right places, and we're getting hyped up about some rookies right now. But they could have a consistent winner, a consistent Super Bowl contender for several years if they figure out the young guns on the secondary and the young guns at outside linebacker.
I have an educated prediction I'm going to make. When we talk to Larry Foote tomorrow about David Walker, he is going to have the biggest smile on his face. And I'll do my best to ask the question, but whoever asks it about David Walker, just wait for his expression, because I get a funny feeling Larry Foote's going to be super excited to talk about David Walker and the whole room. I mean, you have Hassan Reddick, who has a chip on his shoulder. He wants to get back to being a double-digit sacker. He wants to cash in. He's got every incentive in the world to, kind of make up for last year. Yaya Diaby is focused on leveling up as a sack artist. He knows that's the next step he has to take. Pressures are great. Sacks are better. And Chris Braswell, a lot's been said about him, and everything we've heard behind the scenes is that he's putting in the work. So, it's going to be fun to see what Larry Foote has to say about David Walker tomorrow for sure. We have some super chats to get to as well. We want to do that right now at this time because we appreciate all of our super chatters. And let's get to it.
Yeah, we'll start it off with Callum Shaw. Thank you for the €1.99, who says, I still have concerns at inside linebacker, one injury, and we're screwed.
Yeah, that may be the case, and it depends on who gets injured and for how long, right? I think this team could probably weather the storm. If Levante David sprains an ankle or Savasier Dennis, has an injury that keeps him out for a couple of games. From what we've heard, and we'll see, Matt and I will be there at OTAs and specifically in training camp when the Pats come on, right? We'll see how Anthony Walker fares, but what we've been told is Anthony Walker is better than KJ Britt, and Deion Jones is better than JJ Russell. So they feel like they've got two more experienced veteran backup players than they had last year. And then we'll see how the John Bullock develops. We'll see how the Nick Jackson develops. We'll see if Antonio Greer, who stayed on the practice squad all of last year, if he can become a player or not. He made some splash plays in the preseason last year. But, I mean, I'm with you on that. It probably is the position that could not weather a serious injury or two. And you have to hope that Servassier and Levante can play maybe at least 15 out of 17 games, if not the whole schedule. We'll see. I'm with you. I think that's a valid concern. But and listen, it's a position, too, that we had Mike Beal on the show, and he talked about it. We're always looking. We're going to be on the lookout. If there's a player that becomes available that we think will upgrade the roster, we're going to take a look. So season doesn't start tomorrow. We've seen Jason Light and company make some last-minute additions literally right before the start of the season. So we'll see what happens at linebacker.
Yeah, I think inside linebacker is the most fragile position because you can make the case for safety, no doubt about it. I think you could even say, as far as being thin, maybe tight end. But we kind of saw if Cade Otton got injured, Payne Durham and Devin Culp were solid enough
right.
to take over the slack for Kate Otten when he missed a couple of games.
Yeah.
And I say fragile instead of thin because on paper, Levante and Servassier is a pretty good duo. I'm not going to say it's top 5 in the league or top 10, but on paper, it should be a solid duo.
Yeah.
But they don't play the game on paper. There is
Yeah.
a chance that Servassier misses a good amount of time. There is a chance that Father Time catches up to Levante David and maybe he has to miss some games. But I agree, it is a better upgrade with Anthony Walker. And then I think it's going to have to be the case with one of these undrafted free agent inside linebackers. They got to be this year's version of, Kayvon Merriweather or Christian Izzian from a couple seasons ago, being an undrafted free agent that can come in and help out the team in one way or another. It's certainly a little bit of a concern, but I'm with you. Like, worst case scenario, they'll end up making some type of adjustment or signing someone different.
Yep, I agree.
Mark Fisher, thanks for the $4.99 super chat, who says, hearing a number of practice squad potentials, Bucs often draft the best player available. For practice squad, do you know if we keep best player available or for need, or what is the strategy?
I think it's fit. That's something that you always kind of hear about with the practice squad is it's a numbers game too, in terms of, hey, we need X amount of defensive backs, X amount of receivers, etc. But it kind of is best player available, but it's really the best fit too. It's how does this player fit in the locker room? What are their special teams abilities, right? I mean, because you're talking about players number 54, 55, 56, right? Like those guys that you had a hard time cutting for whatever reason. Those are the guys that comprise the practice squad. And that's why you see teams like Tampa Bay especially usually fill their practice squad with players that have already been through their off-season program. Every once in a while, you'll see, a player or two, like they grabbed Michael Pratt and sent him to the practice squad after the Packers cut him. That was a new addition, but they liked Pratt in the draft. So you'll see the Buccaneers stock their practice squad with players that they almost made their 53. And sometimes we see players move up in the practice squad and end up sticking on the roster. J.J. Russell was a player like that, where he was a backup linebacker that started on the practice squad and played most of last year on the active roster, if not the entire year. So that's kind of how they do it.
Yeah, pretty much what you said. It's best player available. Who was the toughest person to, cut? And every year there's always one or two positions where, you can only keep so many and someone slips through the cracks. And it's so funny. Like, you go through all of training camp, these guys are playing, and then you build your 53-man roster, and then within a couple of hours, like, oh, they added someone new to the practice squad or to the roster, or they signed someone else from another team. So it's always a moving part. Like, yes, the initial 53-man roster is a big deal, but it changes a lot. It changes a ton, and I'm sure it will this season as well.
Yeah.
Paul Bowen, thanks for the $4.99 super chat with some musical tones. Says, I got a sister. She's 9 feet tall, sleeps in the kitchen with her feet in the hall. I can't say I know that song, but
I didn't know it either. But the song is Running Down to Cuba, and it's from the Assassin's Creed Black Flag game. So I didn't know that. I'm not trying to act like I'm smart. I Googled it, but that's what it's from. So, which is a pirate themed game, by the way.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah. Now it follows that up with the next line of Running Down to Cuba.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for the super chat, though, and so feel free to put out your musical taste if you see.
Another player I want to talk about real quick is Shiloh Sanders. We had a chance to interview Shiloh during the media session, and a couple things about Shiloh. First of all, you talk about a guy that made a fantastic first impression. Yeah. Okay. He starts off by coming in and saying, "My new media people," and at first I was thinking, like, is he talking about like the Bucs media? Like Scott Smith and Bree and Casey and all of that. Mm-hmm. No, he's actually talking about everybody in the media. So he started his press conference by going around and shaking the hands of everybody, including yours truly. And I thought that was a great touch. Was it calculated? who cares? I mean,
Yeah.
was it calculated?
Oh, he has good ideas. Wow.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Was Baker Mayfield going over and practicing with the defensive line in his very first OTA calculated? Of course it was. He wanted to endear himself to those teammates. And Shiloh Sanders wanting to endear himself to the media. Like, it worked. I mean, mission accomplished. So, yeah, hats off to you. It was a great idea. And, it's funny because Todd Bowles called him loud in terms of who were some of the more vocal players during his press conference on Friday. And he says Shiloh Sanders was loud. And he was asked about that on Saturday. And Shiloh said, "Oh, I'm very loud," and like, that's a good thing because you're as a safety, you're the back end communicator, right? You're usually in the middle of the field, whether you're free or strong, and you have to communicate the call to both corners to make sure that they understand. And how many times have we heard Todd Bowles bitch and whine and moan about the lack of communication in the secondary? We got to communicate better with miscommunication, right? So he appreciates Shiloh Sanders, who's very boisterous, very gregarious, very loud. And those are great qualities to have from a safety of all things. You want to have a loud middle linebacker and you want to have a loud safety. And, and Antoine Winfield Jr. is a good communicator. I think there are times where the Buccaneers want his volume to be amped up a little bit, to be a little bit more animated. You don't have to worry about that with Shiloh Sanders.
Right.
He already has that part of the game under control. And I think the other thing, too, is he's taken this opportunity very seriously.
Yes.
Came down to Tampa early, got here a couple of days before he needed to. Already talked to Antoine Winfield Jr., already talked to the coaches before even signing his deal. Got some pointers and tips about what to study and all of that. Got the playbook early. So it's like this guy is putting his absolute best foot forward. That's great to see. And, we'll see how he is as a football player on the grass. But from a first impression standpoint, hats off to him, man, because I was very impressed with his on-field demeanor. We talked about it on Friday's show. It's uncanny how much he looks like his dad from the back pedal to getting out of his brakes. I mean, he looks like a slower version of Deion Sanders. I mean, Deion ran like a 4.2. Shiloh's in the 4.59 category, right? So he's a chip off the old block, but he's not the old block himself, right? And that's okay. But very engaging young man, very personable, very humble. He wants to come in and be the snack guy.
The snack guy, yeah. And I think the self-awareness for him, I think is very big. And he even had it. We spoke about this like during our draft show. He was at the draft party of his brother, but he was still kind of like joking, like, "Oh, like if he drops, like what does that mean for me?" and stuff like that. So he's already shown he's got like a self-awareness, but an understanding, like he has to put in the work and he has to, make it the same way that everybody else is going to make it. And I think he knows, like, whether he wants it or doesn't want it or whatever the case is, he's a polarizing figure because of the Sanders name. And, Deion's one of the greatest.
Right.
Forget like Colorado and Deion being a head coach. Deion is one of the greatest players in NFL history. Yeah. So, of course, there was going to be attention on him. And then him becoming a coach and everything with Colorado, it just gets maximized that much more. But for him to be like, I want to find out everybody's snacks. And it's cool. He's doing it in the right way.
Yeah.
But also with that Sanders swag and in a good way as well, too. He seems very confident. And, you could see the spit flying from his mouth when he was making calls at practice. So, Todd Bowles pointed it out. It was one of the first things I noticed as well, watching him. He's loud. Now, everything has to come together too. But, even the Bucs posted a video. It was Josh Grizzard, who's the offensive coordinator, but it applies to everybody.
Yeah.
He said over-communicate.
That's right.
I think Shiloh Sanders on the defensive side is certainly going to over-communicate.
Yeah.
So, like you said, a great first impression. I'm excited to see what he'll do moving forward because maybe didn't get an interception like Jacob Parrish, but he was certainly off to a good start too.
Yeah, and listen, even as Todd Bowles said, it's all going to come down to when the pads are on, right? If you're a safety, you got to be able to tackle, right? And I've documented this. I even did a Pewter Pulse. Got criticized by some, applauded by others. That's fine. I want to be fair, and balanced and everything. But tackling is an issue. If you look at Shiloh, he goes for the big hits. Sometimes it forces a fumble. Sometimes it's a bad miss, and the guy bounces off. And his Kansas State tape was the worst of his career. And DJ Giddens made it look silly. But if he can become a really good tackler, and that can be taught, I think as Zion McCollum was taught. Right here from Supply and Demand, Zion couldn't tackle or wrap up. It can be taught. That's true.
Yeah.
And if he becomes if he becomes a good tackler, he's got a chance. So we'll see. Bad W says, "Oops, I'm tired of hearing about Shiloh and Watson." Okay, we have some good news. Rookie minicamp is over. We're on to the OTAs, right? Yeah. So we're going to be talking more about not just the undrafted free agents, but the actual guys that are signed to this roster and all of that. So. Cindy says, "Hey, Matt and Scott, give me a shout out. I just joined. Awesome. Appreciate it.
What's
Thanks
up,
for
Cindy?
having me, Cindy. Thank you very much." So, yeah. So, and the cool thing is we're going to be talking coaches tomorrow. We've got the defensive coaches that we're going to be speaking with, and that's going to be on the show tomorrow, our live reaction to Larry Foote and company talking about the Bucs defensive players, veterans and rookies alike. And then be sure to join us on Wednesday for our Bucs 2025 schedule release show at 8 o'clock. And mark your calendar for May 28th. We'll have special guest Bucs General Manager Jason Light on Wednesday, May 28th at 4 o'clock. Be there or be square.
We got another super chat. Meets McGee. Thank you for the $5. Says, "I'm more concerned with Levante David. Watching Derek Brooks fall off like he did scared me." And then gives a roll call. Atlanta, Georgia, a stone's throw from Truist Park. I believe that's where the Braves play. I've been in that stadium once.
Thank you.
Yeah, so right over there. But thank you for the super chat. The concerns about Levante are valid just in terms of his age. And you never know when it's going to be that drop-off. So, hopefully he's got one more in him. I think he does.
I agree. Wasp with a comment here. No international games for the Bucs? I don't believe so. The only possibility could be Spain over in Barcelona playing the Dolphins. But my Bucs sources tell me that the Buccaneers have not received any heads up or a wink and a nod from the NFL about that. Typically, they, because of the logistics for international planning purposes, they usually tell the opponent for those international games, hey, don't release it yet, but we're going to pick you, and so just be ready. But that did not come through from the league, at least not yet. So I don't think that's going to be the case. So the only chance the Bucs have would be international. For an international game, would be Barcelona against the Dolphins, but I think that game's going to be in Miami instead. We have a comment here from Alex Scott. Thank you for your coverage, PR. Side note, is there somewhere the Bucs list their player camps? It'd be cool to know where the Midwest guys might be holding their camps. I know Bucky Irving has a camp this year, and I've been trying to find out too, just so we can let everybody know. We've covered several Bucs camps before, from Josh Freeman to Jameis Winston. Baker Mayfield had a camp 2 years ago, but I'm not sure if he has one this year. I think Baker's was last year.
Yeah,
I know Rashad White has had a camp, and Kalasha Kancey had a camp, but I don't know if those players are going to be having camps this year or not. As soon as we find out, we'll let you know.
Henry Gigante, Pewter Report YouTube channel member, says, Pewter Report's off-season content is unmatched. LFG. Thank you for the kind words. Yeah, we try to be as entertaining as we can, be topical, all of that good stuff. But thank you for coming out. David Arbuckle says, this training camp is going to be exciting. I hope we can stay healthy this year. That's at times feels like half the battle. It's just staying healthy for this team. We also have a comment from Shaggy, who's been a YouTube channel member for 9 months now. Thank you very much. Says, Shiloh showing something the Sanders aren't known for: humility.
I'll say this about Shiloh. He's 25, right? His younger brother, Shador, is 23. And sometimes there's a big maturity jump that you go from your early 20s to your mid-20s. And I think I think we've seen that with Shiloh. And at the same time, when you don't go drafted, I don't care who you are, that's a humbling experience. So I think Shiloh is grateful for this opportunity. Certainly made a great first impression, not just on the media, but also on Todd Bowles. And that's where it matters most for Shiloh. So good for him. Also good for everybody is the fact that Walk-Ons has got the best happy hour in the Tampa Bay area. If you don't believe me, well, check this out. How about 3 to close tonight? That's right, 3 to close. You can join any of the walk-ons locations for trivia night at 7 o'clock and still enjoy that happy hour menu every Monday. Trivia hour at 7 o'clock, starting at 7. And you can enjoy happy hour from 3 p.m. to close. If you don't make it to walk-ons tonight, rest assured you can make it tomorrow because they have all-day happy hour on Tuesdays plus $5 Tito. So you can't beat that. Wednesday and Thursday, you have 2 opportunities for happy hours, 3 p.m. to 6 and 9 p.m. to close. If you want to watch some NHL or NBA playoffs, it's a fantastic place to go. You have TVs galore. You can eat like a winner and drink like a champ at walk-ons. And one last reminder, to sign up for the Jack Daniel's Spirited Dinner, reserve your seat at walk-ons on May 21st at 6:30 p.m. Enjoy expertly crafted pairings featuring Jack Daniel's finest selections like that Sinatra bottle right there. You can secure your reservation by calling 813-771-7100 or email mid-mkt@walkingtallbrands.com. So if you're a Jack Daniel's enthusiast, we'll get to walk-ons and enjoy a fantastic meal paired along with some of Jack Daniel's finest spirits.
Just real quick, I saw some reports that the Dolphins are playing Washington in Spain. So that would
that makes sense.
That would take the Bucs off the international board. Also, to go back to that last comment about the Sanders family, it's very interesting with them because I think sometimes they get more of a bad rap than who they truly are and what they're all about. I get it. Dion was prime time and all that stuff, but I think they show some grace at times. And Shador was like a whole crazy thing. But yeah, let's not lump. Everyone's got their own history and stuff like that. So let's not lump Shiloh with everything that's gone on with the Sanders. And again, I think sometimes the Sanders have gotten more of a bad rap than necessarily what's been projected and portrayed.
I totally agree. And I've said in my Pewter Pulse video, I'm going to judge Shiloh Sanders by what he does as a Buccaneer, not a Buffalo, right? So he has a clean slate with me and the Pewter Report staff moving forward. And again, great first impression for sure. Just like the first impression you're going to get if you were to call Briar Greaves Insurance. Why? Because they're a family-owned Tampa-based business that will give you the personal touch that is missing in today's world. So why not have a relationship with an insurance agent? I can pick up the phone and talk to Tyler or John, anybody at the Greaves family, and have my questions answered lickety-split. I get a text back, a call back, an email back. They treat every customer like they're the only customer. And that's all you could ask for, especially in the insurance business. Homeowners, auto, flood, boat business. Hurricane season's around the corner. Make sure if you live in a flood zone, you have flood insurance in addition to homeowners insurance. It's critical. So work with an independent agency you can trust. Give Briar Greaves Insurance a call. Have them do the legwork for you. Make sure you're getting the best rate possible on homeowners and auto insurance or boat insurance if you have a boat. Let them do the legwork and find out if you're overpaying. And if you are, they're going to give you the best rate and go with Briar Greaves. BriarGreavesInsurance.com, 813-876-4166.
And then make sure, if you're not already doing so, please follow us on all of our social media on X, Facebook, and Instagram. We're at Pewter Report. And our YouTube channel is Pewter Report TV. Please like and subscribe. Leave a comment on this video, too. That's going to do it for us on today's show. For Scott Reynolds, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks, everybody, for watching. And we will see you tomorrow at 4 p.m. for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.